This video discusses online allegations, rumored claims, and public reactions solely for commentary and analytical purposes. Nothing in this content should be considered confirmed or factual. Option 3, simple and direct.
Last night on social media wasn't content. It wasn't a broadcast. It was an explosion in slow motion. Feeds locked up. Notifications stopped. Conversations froze mid-sentence. And millions watched in stunned silence as Teyana Taylor appeared on IG Live carrying an energy that didn't feel joyful, it felt ominous. Not excitement. Not celebration. Warning. Within moments, rumors detonated across platforms claiming she had revealed a pregnancy, and then unleashed a name that flipped the entire internet on its head. Chris Brown. No build-up. No explanation. No safety net. Just a single moment so suffocating in tension that viewers said they physically forgot to breathe. Her gaze weighed down. Her stillness louder than any words. Her face reflecting something dangerous. Fear, defiance, pressure, and a calm that didn't feel peaceful. The internet moved instantly. Screenshots multiplied. Clips were carved apart, reposted, stretched, slowed, analyzed. And before the live even ended, 2 more names were already surging across timelines, not in support, but in disbelief. Online whispers claimed Aaron Pierre was caught completely off guard, telling people close to him that he felt pulled in, replaced, and emotionally erased. Minutes later, reaction content exploded around a man Shumpert, with fans reading his silence as a quiet confession of betrayal too heavy to hide. Then came the hashtags. Then came the breakdowns. Then came the verdicts. Some crowned her fearless. Others labeled it calculated. And one question echoed everywhere like a warning siren. Was this truth breaking free, or chaos being carefully engineered? Memes flooded timelines. Reaction channels ignited. One clip dominated everything, looping endlessly. Teyana's eyes glassy, voice steady, allegedly saying the choice was hers alone and the truth had waited long enough. If any of this holds weight, this wasn't gossip. This wasn't rumor. This was a public implosion, a reputation-altering moment, a career-altering shockwave, and possibly the most volatile celebrity eruption social media has witnessed in years. And the most terrifying part, the internet is convinced this story is only beginning. Strap in. What happened online didn't feel like content. It felt like a fracture. The kind that scorches timelines and leaves reputations unstable. By the time the clips went viral, the fallout had already started. Phones were shaking. Screens were recording. And a story powered by rumor, reaction, and raw emotion was being constructed in real time. Deep into the night, feeds flooded with claims tied to Teyana Taylor. Viewers said the atmosphere was off from the first second. Not hype. Not promo. Heavy. A pause that lasted too long. A stare that felt braced for impact. According to viral chatter, what followed was an alleged pregnancy reveal that exploded across platforms before a single detail could be confirmed. Then came the name that turned confusion into chaos. Chris Brown entered the narrative through screenshots, speculation, and whispered interpretations that multiplied by the minute. This wasn't controlled. This wasn't planned. There was no caption to guide the narrative. No post to stabilize the moment. No message to slow the fire. Instead, fragments took over. One clip ended too soon. Another was slowed. Another zoomed in on a single expression fans swore showed fear colliding with determination. Comment sections turned into courtrooms. Every frame became proof. Every pause became accusation. As the storm intensified, 2 more figures were dragged into the impact zone, not by their voices, but by the internet's hunger for meaning. Aaron Pierre's name surged across timelines, fueled by reaction videos claiming emotional blindsiding and sudden displacement. Alongside reaction content claiming he'd been completely blindsided. The narrative painted him as someone emotionally pulled close, then violently pushed aside by a revelation he never saw coming. Online language showed no mercy. Rumor hardened into certainty at terrifying speed. Speculation transformed into truth without resistance. Then the focus sharpened again when the internet redirected its hunger toward a man Shumpert. His name surged without a single verified statement, fueled by body language breakdowns, resurfaced interviews, frozen frames, and silence translated into suffering. In the digital courtroom, silence is never empty. It becomes a blank canvas, and the internet paints fast, loud, and ruthless. What made this storm uniquely dangerous wasn't just the allegation. It was the emotional arithmetic happening in public. Timelines were reconstructed. Overlaps were mapped. Old screenshots were fused with new shock. Influencers spoke in absolutes. Reaction channels rolled out thumbnails dripping with outrage. Memes turned grief into engagement. And through it all, the alleged source stayed visible but voiceless. Present, but restrained. A choice that only thickened the fog. Then came the line that refuses to disappear, the moment viewers swear captured everything in one breath. Glossed eyes. A pressured half-smile. A sentence heard as ownership instead of remorse. Those words, fragmented through reposts and paraphrases, became confirmation to some, rebellion to others, and manipulation to the harshest voices. The same phrase became two weapons depending on who was holding it. The sorrow in this story isn't subtle. It's loud. It spreads. Audiences that once celebrated strength now argue about responsibility. Supporters frame it as a woman seizing her narrative. Critics frame it as emotional wreckage left unresolved. And above every interpretation hangs the same uncomfortable truth. None of this happened in private. It unfolded in a space where screenshots never die and silence is archived forever. As the hours dragged on, hashtags multiplied. Commentary hardened. Language shifted into diagnosis. Patterns, motives, intent. Amateur analysts dissected facial movements like crime scene evidence. Others demanded proof while circulating rumors seconds later. The system didn't pause. It consumed itself. And with every refresh, the alleged story grew heavier, darker, more permanent. This is modern scandal. Not built through statements, but fragments. Not through facts, but feeling. Not through clarity, but speed. Once a narrative breaks free, control becomes a fantasy. By sunrise, millions had already decided what they believed, and who they blamed. That's the tragedy. Behind every theory are real lives, real histories, and consequences that don't disappear when trends shift. The internet doesn't wait for verification. It waits for reaction. And reaction is what it got. Violent, emotional, and unstoppable. As this chapter closes, the questions remain suspended in the air. What was truly said? What was distorted? Who absorbed the damage? And who will carry the cost? The feeds will refresh, but the mark of this night won't fade. Because when a moment like this ignites, it doesn't just trend, it brands. And if even half the whispers are real, the next chapter won't be quieter. It will be catastrophic. Morning didn't bring answers. It brought judgment. By daylight, the shock had transformed into a full-scale digital courtroom. Clips weren't just shared, they were examined like evidence. Every pause, every blink, every micro-expression from Teyana Taylor was frozen, labeled, and captioned like a verdict. The story hardened overnight, not through proof, but repetition. That's where rumor becomes lethal. Feeds flooded with screenshots, some authentic, many fabricated, claiming timelines no one could confirm. High-follower accounts spoke with insider authority without a single source. Reaction channels framed theory as destiny. And once inevitability is established, denial becomes suspicious by default. The name carrying the heaviest gravity remained Chris Brown, not because of new information, but because silence became fuel. In gossip culture, absence is never empty. It's interpreted. Fans fought over meaning, restraint, avoidance, strategy, guilt. Each side spoke as if the outcome was already decided. Meanwhile, the emotional fallout expanded. Commentary began stitching old interviews, archived images, and unrelated moments into a new narrative frame. Context disintegrated. History was rewritten in comment sections. Coincidence was rebranded as prophecy. This is how stories rewrite themselves backward. The darkest shift came when the conversation stopped being about what happened and became about who was used. Speculation swelled around Aaron Pierre, posts claiming intimacy, closeness, emotional proximity that was never publicly defined. His name stopped being a person and started being a pattern. Alleged statements swirled through feeds so often without sources that they started feeling official. Curiosity vanished. Accusation dominated. And soon, the same gravity yanked a man shumpered deeper into the frenzy. Old clips resurfaced, stripped bare of context. Past interviews were reframed as dire warnings everyone had ignored. Silence became evidence. Pain was assumed. Betrayal was inferred. This was no longer reporting, it was reconstruction. The courtroom metaphor wasn't accidental. Social media had assigned roles. Influencers transformed into prosecutors. Fans became jurors. Reaction creators turned into expert witnesses, dissecting body language and vocal tone as if human emotion could be quantified with exact precision. At the center of it all sat a woman whose words had been eclipsed by interpretations of her face. Support fractured instantly. Some hailed her as reclaiming agency in a world that polices women's choices. Others labeled it reckless spectacle. arguing that visibility carries responsibility. Neither side paused for verification. Debate raced past facts at a breakneck speed. And the tragedy wasn't the rumor itself, it was how swiftly empathy evaporated. Sadness became spectacle. Pain became content. The possibility that multiple people were hurting at once was flattened into winners and losers. Someone had to be right. Someone had to be wrong. Nuance did not trend. Hours passed. Words escalated. Labels like manipulation, patterns, calculated intent attach themselves with almost surgical precision. Once those labels stick, they're nearly impossible to remove. Denials are reframed as damage control. Silence is assumed guilt. This is the trap of virality. The internet doesn't ask what's true, it asks what's compelling. And compelling stories reward certainty, not caution. By midday, headlines across reaction channels no longer asked questions. They delivered judgments. Thumbnails screamed shock. Captions suggested collapse. The emotional temperature never cooled. Beneath the noise, something quieter lingered: the cost. Careers do not fracture in an instant. They erode under perception. Relationships do not end because of rumors. They strain under public scrutiny. Even if the claims dissolve, the memory lingers. Screenshots never vanish. Algorithms never forget. And that is the darkest part. Whether true or false, complete or partial, the damage has already been done. As the second phase unfolded, one reality emerged clearly: the internet had stopped waiting. It had chosen. Outrage found its rhythm. And the story had moved beyond a single alleged reveal. It was now about power, influence, and who controls a narrative once it escapes its origin. Part 2 offered no answers. It offered escalation. At this level of speculation, correction is irrelevant. The machine keeps turning, and every response, denial, or silence only adds fuel to a fire too hot to extinguish. What comes next won't be softer. It will be louder, colder, merciless. The third phase didn't arrive with noise, it arrived with silence. And silence is where destruction multiplies. By the time the internet reached this stage, outrage had calcified into certainty. Not verified certainty, but emotional certainty. The kind that asks no questions. The kind that rewrites memory and punishes hesitation. Overnight, tone shifted from speculation to judgment, and the story entered its most unforgiving chapter. Feeds were no longer debating whether the alleged reveal mattered, they debated consequences. At the center, Teyana Taylor became less a person and more a symbol, projected upon by audiences desperate to settle their own expectations. Her past was scoured, not for understanding, but for confirmation. Moments once celebrated as confidence were recast as calculation. Strength became control. Silence became intent. Public narratives collapse inward this way. And what intensified the fallout wasn't new information. It was absence. No clarification. No denial. No statement. In the void, reaction creators seized control. Clips were slowed. Frames frozen. Audio isolated and replayed until meaning was manufactured. When content ran out, interpretation took over. Interpretation requires no proof. Attention pivoted again to Chris Brown. His silence became the loudest presence. Fans argued, restraint or avoidance. Critics framed it as evasion. Supporters framed it as wisdom. Truth became secondary to alignment. People didn't ask what happened, they asked who to side with. And sides were chosen aggressively. As the narrative solidified, collateral damage multiplied. Commentary channels warned of irreversible consequences, not because of proof, but because perception had hardened. Brands were dissected. Future collaborations speculated upon. Career trajectories analyzed as if collapse were inevitable. Analyzed as if collapse were inevitable. This was no journalism. It was prophecy fueled by fear. Then came the emotional recasting. What began as a shocking revelation transformed into a morality play. Conversations shifted from events to character. Was it empowerment or manipulation? Ownership or recklessness? The internet cannot linger in ambiguity. It demands labels. And once a label lands, it spreads faster than any correction could chase it. The cruelest turn? Empathy vanished entirely. Comment sections became arenas where suffering was ranked. One person's pain was elevated, another's dismissed. Human complexity flattened into narrative convenience. People claimed authority over feelings they could never verify. Deserved appeared far more often than confirmed. That's when the story stopped being about what happened. It became about what audiences needed to believe. The courtroom atmosphere reached fever pitch. Influencers spoke as judges. Threads read like closing arguments. Screenshots were submitted as evidence with no provenance. Contextual objections were overruled by collective belief. And the jury, million strong, deliberated in public, rewarding the harshest, most cutting opinions with engagement. This is where the tragedy embeds itself. Truth became secondary. Something real was breaking under the weight of attention. Reputations fracture not only when allegations are true, but when narratives stick. Relationships don't require confirmation to snap, they strain under suspicion alone. Even protective silence becomes a liability when the crowd demands performance. Hours passed, and a new pattern emerged. The story no longer required fresh fuel. It fed on itself. Old clips resurfaced. The same theories replayed with amplified certainty. The cycle accelerated, and beneath the outrage lingered a quiet grief. Fans who once felt inspired now felt betrayed. Supporters of privacy felt complicit in violation. Even critics showed signs of fatigue, not guilt, but exhaustion from relentless intensity. The spectacle had reached saturation. Yet no one knew how to exit. This is the cost of viral scandal. There is no resolution. Only replacement. The algorithm doesn't chase truth. It chases continuation. And continuation demands escalation. Each phase must feel darker than the last. Each chapter must feel absolute. Even without confirmation, the narrative has escaped its origin. It belongs to the internet now, reshaped, repackaged, reinforced beyond recall. Whether statements arrive tomorrow, or silence persists, nothing can rewind what millions have already internalized. At this stage, correction is irrelevant. What survives is perception. And perception is permanent. The tragedy isn't only who gets hurt next, it's that no one involved can step away. The internet has decreed that this story matters. And when that happens, truth doesn't get the final word. Virality does. This is the moment where gossip stops being rumor and becomes consequence. What you're witnessing isn't just celebrity drama. It's a collision, live, between silence, speculation, and emotional fallout. Every clip, every pause, every reaction was fed into a machine that doesn't stop. Betrayal doesn't always need proof. Sometimes perception alone is enough to ignite destruction. If even a fraction of these claims are true, someone trusted too deeply, someone stayed silent too long, and someone else paid publicly. And if they're not true, the tragedy is darker still, a chilling reminder of how fast narratives harden, how merciless the spotlight can be once it locks in. What's undeniable is this: nothing about the situation is harmless anymore. Careers feel exposed. Relationships feel fractured. Emotions are weaponized. The internet has stopped waiting for facts. It wants reactions, sides, and closure. And it will keep pressing until someone breaks, or something breaks. So ask yourself this before scrolling. Who actually wins when pain becomes content? Who profits when betrayal is assumed, not verified? How many lives are reshaped while millions watch from behind screens? Once a story reaches this intensity, there is no tidy ending. Only fallout, revision, and the quiet damage left after the trend dies. If you think it ends here, you're wrong. The next move, denial, confirmation, or continued silence, will decide everything. And when it hits, it won't be subtle. Stay locked in. Watch closely. Because truth, whatever it is about to collide with narrative, and only one will survive.